Thank you for joining us today. My name is Samira Tilley, Product Marketing Manager at Autodesk. It is my pleasure to welcome you to today's session where we will talk to Flint Builders and listen in on how they utilize Assemble for their pre-construction and prefabrication workflows. Now, before we get started, we do have a few housekeeping items to quickly go over. Your lines are muted to reduce background noise. If you have a question, please use the question box. We will have time for Q&A at the end. However, we may address a few questions as they come in. And lastly, a link to the recording will be emailed to all registrants. So I'm joined today by two of my favorite people at Autodesk, Austin Ellard and John Pryor. So let's start with brief introduction. John, let's start with you first.
All right. Hello, my name is John Pryor. I'm a VDC subject matter expert here at Autodesk, covering the Americas. I've been with Assemble since 2017. During that time, I've worked in both customer success and pre-sales. And in recent years, I've been still covering Assemble, as well as Takeoff, BIM Collaborate, and Autodesk Tandem. And with that, I'll pass it over to Austin.
Thanks, John. Hey, everyone. My name is Austin Ellard. I'm a technical solutions executive here with Autodesk. I've been with the company for about 4 years now, and before that, I was a structural engineer in the Bay Area. Now I support all the Autodesk Construction Cloud, but I do also support Assemble. So with that, I will pass this over to John Reinhardt at Flint Builders.
Thanks, Austin. I'm John Reinhardt. I'm the VDC director for Flint Builders. I've been with the company for about 2 years now. Came from a superintendent background, doing generally technology and life sciences work in the Bay Area. Since moved to Flint up in the Sacramento area. And I made the switch from superintendent to kind of the VDC world, just because I have a big passion for kind of continuously removing waste on projects and company workflows by utilizing technology. So that's why I'm at where I'm at, and I'll pass it off to Ryan.
How's it going, everyone? I'm Ryan Wagner. I'm a project manager at Flint, helping out in the self-perform side of things, so prefabrication and modularization. I've been with Flint for about a year now. Prior to that, I was working in the Bay Area in concrete construction, and I've also worked as a structural engineer in the past too. So really happy to be here today and talk a little bit about us and how we use Assemble.
Awesome. So in today's agenda, we'll not only introduce you to all to Assemble, but we're also going to go through some real world examples and demonstrate how Assemble has enabled Flint Builders to streamline their VDC self-perform work. Afterwards, we'll also get into some lesson learned with implementing new technology at Flint Builders. John Pryor is actually going to provide us a quick mini demo of Assemble, and then we'll round out today's session with some Q&A. Autodesk Assemble is a powerful model conditioning and BIM data management solution that allows building information and VDC managers to organize, customize, and share model data with key stakeholders for downstream workflows. The Autodesk Construction Cloud connects teams and project data from every stage of construction, from design to turnover, reducing risk, protecting profits, and increasing predictability. It brings every project team together on a single cloud-based construction management software and allows everyone to collaborate securely from a single source of truth. Assemble removes the barrier of entry to BIM. It extends the value of BIM downstream, and it allows to give access for everyone, not just those with BIM or VDC in their job title. It enables downstream workflows such as model-based quantity takeoff, model-based version comparison for design changes and value engineering, model-based constructability reviews that doesn't require an expensive laptop or a BIM-savvy VDC manager to help. It also allows for model-based production tracking that even your most old-school superintendent can do. Now let's get into the Flint Builders case study of how they're using Assemble.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin. So a little bit about our company first. We are Flint Builders, mid-sized GC and soon to be architecture and engineering firm out of Roseville, California. We have offices in Roseville, San Jose, and a new one just opened in San Diego. Our target markets are higher education, K through 12, healthcare, and modular construction. These are a few of our projects, just kind of some nice screenshots. Really what I wanted to highlight here is we like to highlight design build approaches on as many projects as we can, or at the very least lease back, which is popular delivery method in K through 12. What this allows us to do is get involved with kind of guiding the design to our liking, specifically with regard to preparing for our prefabrication workflows. So kind of one of the ones I wanted to highlight here, this one in the top middle, this is a project in San Jose we're working on, and we were really strategic. Oh, sorry, can you go back one more, John? We were really strategic about kind of going with a full design build workflow here. Direct contracts, from our team to each of the design firms, managing the design process with, some of our in-house design experts, and utilizing model-based design from day one. So this is one of our premier projects that we're working on currently, but the one we're going to talk about today is Elk Grove High School. So Elk Grove High School, a project that we utilize Assemble on, new classroom building, $25 million lease back project delivery method. It's about 50,000 square feet, 2 stories, 30 classrooms, 4 staff offices, pretty basic classroom building. One of the cool things about this project is that we were able to get about 300,000 in VE savings. And specifically because we utilized the lease back project delivery method, but we also were able to use Assemble and leverage that to kind of make quicker decisions and make better decisions with regard to value engineering. Also on this job, which we'll dive into, is we had about 193 prefabricated wall panels and over 2,000 framing members. So an example of, we're kind of going to take you guys through the timeline of how we utilize Assemble through the project lifecycle. But starting with estimating, kind of one of the main things that Assemble allowed us to do was quickly analyze model updates from design teams at different milestones. So those quick quantity takeoffs for large scale items like concrete or steel, we were able to take in those new models, verify changes, and provide some good input to the owner for what the changes and what the impact was for each of those changes. We could also back check our model quantities with our on-screen takeoff quantities, some of our more detailed quantity takeoffs, so we could quickly back check our numbers to make sure we weren't missing anything. So this is just a quick little GIF of how we were able to see some of the changes between models. So you can see here, if it's not too blurry, over on the left-hand side, we're comparing 2 models, our 90% CD set against our 100% DD set. And what it's going to do, or what it allowed us to do, is look at, specifically the foundations and slabs of this building and verify what has been changed, what has been added, what has been removed, all color coordinated within the model, so we could quickly see, okay, what changed in the design, be able to apply a unit cost to that, and quickly within minutes, no more than an hour, let the owner know what the changes were and what the impact was between the 2 design deliverables. So one of the things I wanted to highlight on, because it is really important for our workflow of using Assemble, is our coordination process. So you can see here, all of our projects are modeled to LOD 350 plus for critical trades. So that, typically is MEPF, steel. Sometimes we'll get glazing involved if need be, curtain wall systems. But our entire project, every project we do, is modeled to that level of detail. The reason we do that is because obviously all of our framing members are modeled with the intent to panelize at our shop. So this screenshot kind of shows you the level of detail that we're going to, what's real life and put in the field versus what was modeled. This is an example of our shop drawings. So you can see here, like I said, all of our framing is fabrication level. The model is basically flattened to 2D, which is the sheet you're seeing here, and then annotated with dimensions and as well as a framing cut list for our shop teams. This is a lengthy and labor-intensive process up front. The coordination and detailing really requires a lot of resources and a lot of time to plan all this out. As most can imagine, you're basically building the entire building and tracking and sorting out issues before we even build it in real life. So it is labor intensive, but the dividends do pay off in the fields from a safety and schedule perspective. Also from a waste standpoint of ordering material and that sort of thing that Ryan's going to get into. But it also allows us to utilize Assemble to its fullest capacity for exact quantity takeoff and procurement. So I'll hand it off to Ryan now. He's going to get a little bit more into that process.
Okay, hey everybody. So John talked a little bit about how we use Assemble in estimating and pre-con, but we also use Assemble in more workflows through production, and the first just being basic model quality control. So using Assemble here really helps break out all the model data to review in an organized list prior to a more traditional method, which would be printing out shop drawings or basically reviewing things manually on paper. So what you're seeing in this video loop is a view of our Elk Grove framing model, and it shows the overall quantities of different framing members. And typically in a fully QC'd model, you would see fewer groups of framing members with larger sizes. You can see some of these here already look pretty good. There's a quantity of about 33,000 lineal feet for a basic 6-inch stud. But what I'm seeing here in this view is a single 6-inch stud with only a quantity of 10.39 feet, which is a red flag, right? You would assume if everything's looking congruent and all together, like I said, you'll see fewer lists or fewer groups of framing members with those larger sizes. So this stud here was modeled with the wrong flange thickness, which again, you can see the stud designation there on the left-hand side. And then using this target icon, I can quickly locate where in the model this error occurs, and I can make note of this and relay the information back to our modeler. So although we're just talking about one single stud in this case that was off, like John mentioned, we use our framing model to produce all of our shop drawings, and to do all of our takeoffs. So having the wrong information in the model means the shop drawings are not going to be correct, which could lead to production delays, or the material takeoff is not going to be correct, and we're going to end up ordering material that we can't use. So speaking of material takeoffs, this is the next process in which we leverage Assemble. So yeah, looking at this screen here, once we have our model fully QC'd and updated, we're ready to start the process of taking off and procuring our framing material. So the first step here is to set up our view in Assemble to show only the items we want to take off. And we can do that through different things. We're going to get into it a little bit later, but using Assemble properties and filters in the model tree and visibility settings to basically just show us what we want to take off. So yeah, this view is set up for a procurement takeoff. And right now I'm showing this view to be grouped by categories. So at the top of the screen or the top of the list, you're seeing structural columns, which is studs, jambs, and other vertical elements. In the middle, you're seeing different quantities of structural connections, which are saddle clips for our headers and small angle clips for things like cripple studs. And then on the bottom, you're seeing structural framing, which is basically all the horizontal members. So in this case, this is our track pieces as well as headers. And with all this information looking good, meaning everything is up to the project specs, and like I said, it has all been QC'd, we're ready to export this data into Excel using the Assemble plugin for Excel, which we'll see on the next slide. So yeah, there's a lot of numbers and stuff on this page, and without getting too much into the details of how to set up this plugin, which is very straightforward once you sort of figure it out, what we're basically doing with this is we're pulling in each individual framing member from the model view that we were just looking at in Assemble. And along with that framing member, we're pulling in the length out of the model as well as the count. Now the count is always going to be 1 for each member because we're pulling in the single unique member from the model. But the reason that count is important is because what we're going to do next with this raw data is basically we're just going to create a pivot table out of this information. Now I'm definitely not an Excel expert, but pivot tables are really helpful when you have a lot of information like this and you're looking to sort of categorize it nicely and do some things. Like in this case, what I'm doing is I'm basically creating a pivot table that shows the framing members, their different lengths, and then how many times that length occurs. So over on the right is my pivot table, and yeah, sorry, real quick. You can see here for this 600 kJS, which is a quick jam stud, you know, I can see that there are 8 different instances at 11.5 feet. There's 4 at 12 feet, and then there's a couple other sizes that are all listed here and grouped up. So this is what's driving our material takeoffs and procurement. And if you go to the next slide, you can kind of see, yeah, this is just my particular way that I like to sort of view all the information at a glance and on one screen. So I'm just taking the information from the pivot table and breaking it out so I can see how many, or, you know, the different lengths for each member and how often it occurs. And this spreadsheet is just my own personal way of doing this. This is, you know, just basically looking at data, but this is what I'm using to drive my material orders. So you can see, again, using that quick jam example, you know, there's 11 members at 13.31 feet. I've highlighted some other areas where we have larger quantities of members, and those are going to be the sizes that we're going to order pre-cut. So when they come to our shop, all we're doing is just building, which really saves us a lot of time. So I think that's the end of talking about takeoffs and procurement. And if we go to the next slide, we're going to go over how we use Assemble in our production processes. So this view that you're looking at here is what I've called a shop production view. And we're using color coding here to track what has been fabricated and what has not been. So this view is really helpful because it easily communicates visually to anybody who looks at this screen what has been done and what has not been done. So it looks like the video skipped or is stopped a little bit, unfortunately. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down this list, and as we complete panels in our shop, there it goes again. I'm just selecting a number of these panels and then opening up the Assemble Properties tab. I've created an Assemble property for fabricated, and I'm just going to say yes, it has been fabricated. And you can see that the colors have changed and the model has been updated to show that this has now been done. So this is super, super helpful, again, for communicating to, you know, anybody from a foreman to the president of our company who's not necessarily down in the weeds, you know, in the shop, or he just kind of wants to have an idea of what's been done or not. Having these visual tools here and different color codings are super helpful in that regard. And also by statusing these wall panels, we can apply different filters to our model to, you know, either show or hide different things. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Ryan, I had a question here. Who's actually inputting this status data? Is it the shop foreman or?
So I currently what we're doing at Flint is we have the shop foreman just providing us with a list, and I am actually going through and updating. Sorry, I'm not sure if I was muted there, but yeah, so I'm actually being given a list from the shop foreman and then updating this in Assemble myself. And part of the reason I'm doing that myself is for exactly what I'm going to be talking about here on this next slide. So while we're in production, we're keeping track of our material inventory that's in the shop, and you know, we'll order all this material at one time because we can so quickly do these takeoffs, and because we can do it so accurately, we feel confident in ordering the material and making sure that's right. But as things come up, you know, sometimes, I'm sure if you guys have been in a shop before, sometimes your material will grow some legs and walk off, or maybe there's been a change and it's required some additional material to get the job done. By statusing these wall panels and, you know, telling Assemble what has been done, I can filter out the panels that have been done. So all you're seeing here after this filter gets applied is panels that are not built. And the material list that's being shown here gets updated as you filter through it. And so now I'm just looking at the material that's required to finish building this work. And so I like to do this little routine at least once through production, about midway through, and sometimes more depending on the size of the project. So I can basically retake off the building at this state, you know, basically with only what's left to be built. And I can compare that new takeoff to the inventory that I have in the shop. So it's super quick. You know, the statusing of the panels is really just clicking through a few different panel IDs and just hitting that, you know, that Assemble property. And then as you can see here, filtering out that Assemble property is also very quick. And it really is just powerful for kind of making sure you're on track through production of the building.
Yeah, and this process too, just chiming in here, also allows us to kind of do a retroactive look at how much material we used versus how much we had kind of estimated in a very granular level. And that really allows us to drill down what our waste factor is on material orders to the point where, you know, like Brian said, we're ordering specific cuts, but maybe for some of the items that we do need to cut, we can really identify what our waste factor needs to be for future projects to a higher level of accuracy.
That's great, guys. I wanted to ask a quick question here before we dive into the value that Assemble brought. You mentioned this a little bit earlier, John, but how do you guys ensure the model accuracy during the project lifecycle?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's a handful of ways. You know, number one is Ryan is in here and our team of project managers are in here looking at the model through its development and, you know, doing QC exercises within Assemble, basically flagging anything like Ryan was showing on one of his first slides, anything that looks out of place. But then additionally, the other thing that we're making sure we're doing is Assemble has the link to BIM 360, which is where we host all of our models. We're getting all of our models direct from BIM 360, so there's never a question of what's the most current and what's the most accurate. It's always constantly accurate and the most updated because it's pulling directly from BIM 360.
Awesome, thank you, John.
So, yeah, some of the value that Assemble has brought. One of them, like, you know, I kind of mentioned it just a second ago, is centralization. So because everything's connected to BIM 360, which is where we're hosting our coordination and all of our models, we know that, like this says here, it is the single source of truth. And we know that it is accurate and everyone can go look at it with confidence. Automation, pretty obvious based on the couple of slides we had, just makes things much easier, you know, for going in and doing takeoffs and ordering material and knowing that that material order is 100% accurate. Communication, for sure, it definitely has, you know, we're looking at projects through this process and having everything connected. We're looking at projects at a finer level of detail much earlier on and getting, you know, focusing more on design builds efforts, you know, project delivery methods on our projects. We're able to kind of integrate and talk about things that otherwise would have happened after we already had, you know, a construction set of documents, and we can get all of those changes communicated and implemented into the drawings before we go in for a permit. And then connecting teams, yeah, I mean, we, because everybody is living in that BIM 360 world and linking into Assemble as well, All of our teams are looking at everything, you know, from the designers to design build trades. Everybody's looking at everything with a fine-tooth comb much earlier than we otherwise would have.
Okay, I can talk about this a little bit. So measuring success, this is directly related to the Elk Grove project that we were just talking about. This first thing here, hours saved on takeoffs. So per floor, which this was just a 2-story building, I've gotten so familiar with Assemble, I can actually do these takeoffs on a fully QC'd model in about 20 minutes. If you could imagine going through the, a traditional method of, looking at a plan set and, looking at an actual floor plan versus an elevation versus a section, and making sure that you've got the right heights and you've got the right sizes and designations and everything like that. It is just invaluable to be able to use something like Assemble to do these takeoffs. And again, there is some upfront work in making sure that your model is QC'd, but the benefits of being able to do a takeoff, and like I showed, when you filter through different Assemble properties and only look at the specific things you want, because of Assemble and its capabilities to do that, these takeoffs are so much quicker. And some of them, if you're just looking at overall holistic data, you don't even need to do anything except open Assemble, because all that total, whatever it is, square footage or counts or lineal footage is right there at a glance. Reduce shop labor time. We figured we saved almost 50 hours by being able to take off and order pre-cut material to the exact height. And again, because we have a fully coordinated model, our wall panels and our shop drawings have everything from blockouts in there to clips and connections, and all that information is just right there and readily available. So by using Assemble to pull all that model data out and just parse it and go through it and order exactly what we need, we've reduced the time to cut a stock 16-footer per se down to whatever it might be, fractions of an inch or eighths of an inch. So improved communication, yeah, like I mentioned, sometimes the president will come in and just ask how things are going, and by being able to show him some of these views that I've set up that sort of status the job and where it's at, is just a very easy visual way to communicate to anybody how things are going and areas that we can improve. And you can add, hundreds of different Assemble properties in there to track certain things, to color code them, to filter by them, and stuff like that. And then, yeah, BIM accessible to the entire team. Like I mentioned, there's everybody from the shop foreman to the president of our company to the owner and the school district that we're working with, to be able to show them this information in a easily digestible format that is just very clear and concise. If you're familiar with Revit and going through there, you're kind of looking at things piece by piece, but it's difficult to communicate with actual numbers, things that are being shown in the model. So Assemble is super helpful in that regard.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Flint Builders team, John and Ryan. We really appreciate you guys taking us through your case study. With that, I'm going to go ahead and transition into a quick Assemble demo. So this will be a fast demo. I really just wanted to illustrate how Assemble works from the beginning of the project lifecycle towards the end. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump in. Getting started here, we're going to go ahead and add our models into Assemble through either BIM 360 or Docs. We can connect directly into those Docs environments. This way we can start publishing those Revit models over. This doesn't require you to actually open Revit. This will all happen within the background. With that, we'll go ahead and jump into the structural model. Here you'll be able to see the inventory as well as the model viewer, and then the 2D sheets. From here, we can make selections within the inventory, and then we'll be able to see that within the 3D viewer. as well as being able to see that within the 2D sheets. So everything's going to work connectedly. We can make selections in 3D, we can make selections in 2D, and all of that will appear within all 3 screens. So here I'm making a selection in 2D, and then we're able to see that within 3D there, as well as the quantities within the inventory. Next, we'll jump into a structural takeoff, and for this, I'm just going to focus on steel. So to start here, we're just going to go ahead and jump into structural material as it comes from Revit. What we'll see here is within the inventory, it already shows that we do have some steel here. So we can select on those, QA/QC that within 3D, make sure that everything that we've selected within the model truly is steel and we're not grabbing anything extra. And we'll utilize those assemble properties, the bid package there, to say that this item is steel. What's nice about Assemble is, even though you may still have some items in this not assigned column that are truly steel, as users of Assemble, we have the ultimate say of what these objects are. So I have these structural framing items that are not assigned to steel, but I know they are steel, and this is about 88 tons. So I'll go ahead and add this to the bid package of steel. And now we're going to be able to start condensing all that information into one package. I could do this for the rest of the model, but I'm just going to focus on steel for this example. And we'll use the visibility settings now to say, let's just look at the bid package of steel. This is going to filter everything else out from my model. And now I can regroup this by my bid package breakdown, where my highest level is going to be my steel. Beneath that, I have the family name and the type name. This way I can see all the different types of steel, the sizes of those steel, and the corresponding tonnage for each of those different steel members. Our color by property allows us to start visualizing our model based off of whichever property we'd like from Assemble or from the model properties. Here we're using family name, and we'll go ahead and save this view, and we'll call this just our steel takeoff. Now, anybody that has access to this Assemble project will be able to see that view and come directly into this breakdown of how I've ordered my inventory, how I ordered my colorization. Next, we're going to go to the installation status. So we're colorizing our model by installation status. This is the first time I'm working with this for installation. So I'm just grabbing everything that's not assigned, which is all of my steel. And I'm going to go ahead and put this into the installation status of not installed. Now, to help prepare this for the mobile app, what I'm going to do is start grabbing some members of steel here and just flip the status of these from not installed to in progress. This way I can start creating the colorizations that I like, as well as having the statuses I want to have available within the mobile app. So now you see that those members turn blue, indicating that those are in progress. And now I'll grab the rest of these items here, and we'll say that these ones are installed. So once again, I can jump in, check my color by property, make sure those colors are the colors I want, save my view, and now we can start preparing this to be used within the field. All right, so my view's made. And now we'll go ahead and jump into the mobile app. So before I jump into the mobile app, the Assemble mobile app is available for iOS. So any Assemble Systems user can download this within the App Store. It's free to use as long as you have an Assemble license. So anybody that is accessing Assemble on the desktop can also access Assemble within their mobile app. Directly into that steel installation view. On the left, I have my inventory that's sorted by the installation status. I have those same colorizations that I saw within the desktop. And now I'm just going to go ahead and drag select a big group of items here to flip the property from not installed to installed. So this is how simple it is to status. I have my installation date. I'll simply just put current date and time. And now this is going to track that current date and time for me so I can start looking at historic information. We can also multi-select by just grabbing different items here. So if I don't want to grab a group of items, but I just want to grab some items here, I'll just go ahead and multi-select these, add them to my selection, And then we can go ahead and status these 4 items here, mark them as installed, and then put in the current date and time for those installations. All this information is going to feed back to the desktop. If you do not have internet out in the field, we do have the option to download this locally, so you can work offline. Just wait until you do get internet connection again, and then you can sync that information back. So to round out this workflow, the last piece that I want to show here is Power BI. This is a Microsoft tool. So if you do have Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Power BI is also within that same suite. Assemble has a direct integration with Power BI, which is a data visualization tool. This allows us to start pulling that raw data that's coming from Assemble, and we can begin to organize this into different visualizations that really tell a story about what's happening with our project. Here, we can see the overall installation, what the percentage complete is, and what those quantities are. Underneath, we can look level by level to see what's installed, what's in progress, and what's not installed. And then we'll have our inventory view on the left. This way we can see for each of these different categories, how much we've actually installed, what's in progress, and what's not installed. Within Power BI, you simply just need to hit the refresh button to pull the most recent information from Assemble. This way, you can start automating what is being reported out in the field. You can start sharing this information with key project stakeholders, such as owners, who may not necessarily want to jump in the model, but still want to see a very good picture of what's happening within the field. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Samira, and she's going to take us through a poll.
All right, thanks everyone for such a great presentation. And we will be going into Q&A shortly, but I'm going to launch a quick poll here. Please take a minute and go ahead and let us know if you would like a free trial of Assemble. Now, while the poll is running, we're going to dive right into the question. We have had some great questions actually coming in, and our team has been busy answering them throughout the session. So the first one is for the Flint Builders team. How do you guys ensure model accuracy during the project lifecycle? John or Ryan, whichever one.
I can take that one. I think I touched on it previously a little bit. Like I said, the integration with BIM 360 and ACC allows us to make sure that we constantly have the most current model. We can QC against that. But then obviously, within ACC or BIM 360 design collaboration, we just have a standard process that, you know, we're making sure that we're having regular model updates, and those are getting pushed directly to Assemble. So that's generically how we do it. We have a few other QC processes that we use, but generically that's how we do that.
There was an interesting question that came in kind of related to that. Like, what model level do your design professionals deliver for the project that helps you quickly pull the data into Assemble?
Yeah, that's a good one. Early on, it is a little difficult because, you know, the level of development of some of the models at schematic are not quite there. Typically, we find it the most valuable to have at least an LOD 200 model. 300 is preferable, but you know, you actually find quite a bit of things even between an LOD 200 and 300 level model. You find some big things that change just from the designers building out their model a little bit more, and that's when you really start to see the value of the changes between the models and being able to apply unit cost to them. Is you can really see, okay, as we went from more of a schematic design to a design development level design, the process of doing that, you know, increased our cost by X amount, whatever that may be. So like I said, typically LOD 200 is where we can really start using them within Assemble, but 300 is preferred.
Perfect. And there was a question kind of related to that. They were wondering, you know, who's providing the model at the start to you guys? Is it usually the architect for the project? Because they don't typically get this level of detail. So they were curious about it.
Yeah, typically the design team. Like I said, we usually get them not right at the beginning because they're just not developed yet, but it is towards the beginning. Usually at the end of schematic is when we really start diving in with Assemble and doing takeoffs.
All right. So another interesting question. They see the huge benefits of this for quantity takeoff in design build projects. Their question is, what happens when you have an approved design handed over to you for construction? Do you first take the time to finish modeling it before you take off quantities?
Yeah, I would say so. You know, and for some projects, you know, we aren't handed a model. So kind of going back to that question I was just asked, and in that case, at Flint, we will take over the modeling efforts ourselves. You know, we don't get into you know, some of the specific subcontractor trades like electrical or plumbing or anything like that, but we will do things like building profiles and slab edges and you know, big openings and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it like we mentioned, we model with the intent to fabricate from that. So, and you know, for the numerous benefits that we talked about, it's a lot of upfront work, but the amount of time that you save going back and, you know, just looking at specific things, or the, you know, the time that you can save in your shop as you are prefabricating by having a fully coordinated model, it really is invaluable and saves time and money and waste.
Perfect. Now, either Austin or John Pryor, if you guys want to handle this, there were a couple of questions around the upload process. I know you covered the publish from docs and BIM 360 docs and Autodesk docs, but if you guys want to touch on the Revit add-ins, that will be great.
Sure. So the different ways that you can get information in from into Assemble. So the BIM 360 publisher and ACC docs publisher supports Revit, but we do have the option to publish directly from Revit. The 2D sheets that you were seeing do come from that Revit publish. You won't get the 2D sheets when publishing from BIM 360 or ACC, but we also do have the ability to start publishing models from Navisworks. This really opens up a lot of different file types that you can start bringing to Assemble. I saw there was a question about IFC. So IFC, you know, you can either publish through Revit or Navisworks for those. But being able to publish from Navisworks will really open up to a lot of different other 3D models if you want to start publishing your coordinated files.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I see a lot of customers using that Navisworks publisher to publish a Tekla structural model out of Navisworks. So they're able to actually get all that fabrication data into Assemble, and it's very valuable for their production tracking on the self-performed steel side. Another question was, can this information be translated to a P6 schedule? And the answer is yes. We have the ability to integrate a P6 schedule to Assemble, so we can do like 4D animations, and you can also just tag schedule activity IDs to the modeled elements. So yes, there is an integration with Primavera P6.
And all you need to make that work is just a XER file. You don't need to directly hook into P6. So that's probably the easiest way for you to get started with that integration.
There was another question, are we able to customize the phase of production, you know, design, fab, ship, received, installed, and verified? And yes, definitely. That was a use case for our Assemble properties. And just to reemphasize, the Assemble properties are custom parameters that live in the cloud in Assemble, separate from the authoring tool, and it allows you to enter in those custom statuses. Like Ryan was using an example of fabricated or not fabricated in that status property. So yes, definitely. In terms of the modeling side, John or Ryan, are you guys using any Revit add-ins to add family data for fabrication?
Yeah, so we utilize MWF, which is a Revit plugin. It's developed by Structsoft Solutions, and that's where we do all of our framing members. That's where they all go in, and they actually group them together into panels for us, which is really nice for, you know, obviously the fabrication component, but also inside of the model, we can group things by panels and status by panels, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that just emphasizes the importance of like having a good upfront model. Once you have that data in the model, it's really easy to assemble. But that's not to say you can't condition the model in Assemble. That's what it's really built for, is you can condition a design model and make it construction ready. Question, is Assemble included with any of the AEC collection packages? And the answer there is no. The AEC collection contains all of the authoring tools like Revit and AutoCAD, and then Navisworks for coordination. But what it does come with the AEC collection is Autodesk Docs. And what we showed today was the integration between Docs and the ability to publish that model from one cloud-based common data environment into Assemble. So it really makes it easy to do all the workflows we saw today if you do have an AEC collection package.
I think there was a couple of questions around how much time, and I apologize, my audio disconnected, but you may have asked this already. But how much time do you guys spend QCing the model?
A lot. Yeah, definitely a lot. And we're involved from the beginning of the modeling process all the way, basically till we hit print on those shop drawings. Again, we model with the intent to fabricate off of it, and it is a lot of upfront work, and it's one of those things like the more work you put into it, the more sort of benefits you can reap at the end of it. So the quality control is super critical to our production workflows and prefabrication workflows.
Yeah, and that's inclusive of any other models that we're coordinating against. So one of the, I think Austin was touching on, people bringing in steel models via Navisworks. One of the things that we do just to kind of keep a pulse on our trade partners and their status of updates and models is what we will pull in their models into Assemble to kind of track changes. Classic example of that is things changing after you sign off an area of a building. And one of the things that we've done is pulled in, a model of sign-off model, and then a subsequent model that maybe is, 3 weeks past the sign-off date, and then pull that in to be able to verify if things have changed in a certain area that's been signed off.
Perfect. Next question I see, what happens to data you apply to elements in Assemble when those original elements in Revit are deleted or new items replaces them? Is it tracking items by a Revit element GUID? I don't know if Austin or John.
Yeah, I can take that one. So yeah, the answer is yes. It does track those properties based on that Revit element ID. So if a version changes, as long as that element ID stays the same, that Assemble property data can carry along with it. So, if your architect's gonna move a wall 10 feet, don't delete the wall and then recreate it, 10 feet north. You wanna actually move that wall over so you keep that element ID intact.
The other thing is, when you are publishing new versions of your model to Assemble, the old versions are still referenceable. You can just flip back to a previous version. So even though some information may not pass over because things have changed to the newest version, you can always refer back to where things were before. So you would never lose data by publishing a new version of the model.
All right, perfect. Now, does Assemble work with horizontal projects?
It can. Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. Easy enough. Let's see. Austin, if you see some interesting questions you want to pick, go for it. There's quite a few.
I'll just expand upon that instead of just saying yes. I mean, Assemble really is at its heart a data management tool, and your model is essentially going to be the main reference point for that data. So as long as you do have a 3D model for any type of horizontal construction, that can be brought into either Revit or through our supported files within Navisworks, you can bring that into Assemble and then start supplementing the information with that horizontal project within Assemble. So it's
Perfect.
And then just to kind of bring things back here, I just wanted to ask the Flint team, like, how are you guys doing this procurement tracking workflow before? I don't think we really got to touch on that.
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. So, you know, a lot of this, honestly, and I kind of mentioned it a little bit, was a very traditional method of basically using a PDF viewer or actual, like, I know this sounds kind of weird in 2022, but paper documents, you know, like an actual physical plan set with the highlighters. And the downsides of that, and, you know, obviously computers speed a lot of things up, but even if you're using a PDF viewer like Bluebeam or Acrobat or something like that, you are having to reference and flip back and forth between multiple sheets and views, and it's just yeah, I don't not bashing that at all, because I know there are still a number of people who like to do things that way. But when you do have a fully coordinated model and QC'd model, like I mentioned, I've gotten to the point where I can do these takeoffs for a whole, you know, 50,000 square foot building in under a half hour, which would just, unless you're dealing with a box, you know, that's 10 foot tall and there's no openings or, you know, MEP systems in the building, which just doesn't exist, you're spending a lot more time than a half hour. You're talking about weeks to do something like that, or days, possibly even weeks.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I think that's really important, just to highlight the value of a new tool. I mean, like at Flint, like how do you guys, you know, deal with implementing new technology, and like, I guess, how tech savvy is your team and the ones that are actually touching Assemble? Like, did you have to deal with any pushback on, you know, implementing new technology? I guess maybe just an overview on how you guys manage that.
Yeah, I can cover that. It's a challenge, I think, in the industry. I don't think it's even a company question. It's just in the industry there's been ways of doing things for a very long time, and there's always going to be pushback. The one thing that we've found is finding champions, Ryan being one of them, and having them run with it and start to kind of show the value to others that may be skeptical. So yeah, that's kind of how we've approached it. We know there's going to be pushback. There always is. Change is tough, but finding people who want to utilize technology, want to get more efficient by utilizing technology. That's how we approached it.
Yeah, and having something like Assemble that is very visual focused, by statusing things by color or by setting up your views to show exactly what you want to communicate. It really helps when you can use pictures and a sort of visual representation of what you're looking at or of what you're trying to communicate to bring that information to a wide range of people from different technology backgrounds and just different backgrounds in general. I mean, we talk to our marketing team using Assemble. We talk to our estimators, our executives, our foremen. Anybody can get value out of it. So yeah, it's really nice to have that visual aspect and to be able to sort of tailor the information into these different groups for what they're working on or what they sort of specialize in. Like I said, marketing or estimating or an executive level type person.
Perfect. And I know, John, you had showed the Power BI dashboard. There's a question around BI report, something that needs to be set up separately, or is that a reporting option from Assemble? If so, is there a standard report template available?
Yeah, so we have a data connector that's a certified connector within the Microsoft Store. It does bulk import whatever is contained within your view. So the example that I showed, I had set up myself. That's generally the easiest way to do it. And you can create your own templates as long as you are using those same Assemble properties. from one project to another. But yeah, using that views connector will be much better than our old way with our templates, which was a uncertified connector. By using the certified connector, you can set up scheduled refreshes online. So I highly suggest that. But you know, we are here to help if there is anything that you have questions with Power BI and Assemble.
All right. I know we are almost at time, and I want to give everyone an opportunity to add any closing thought. Is there a question you want to pick, Austin, that you're like, whoa, that's the one? There's
No,
so many great questions.
yeah, there's
But
a lot of great questions. You know, I just think that Flint gave a great overview today of how they're using Assemble, how it's added value to their projects and their customers. Yeah, I just wanted to open it up, you know, to the Flint team, or John, if you have any closing thoughts.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, thanks for listening to our spiel. It's, you know, it's a great product, and it's definitely improved a lot of our workflows and how we do things, and ever growing, trying to improve. And yeah, looking forward to finding more ways to use it in the future. Ryan, I don't know if you had anything.
No, I don't think so. Yeah, like it's, you know, we mentioned a little bit, we're really focused on prefabrication here at Flint, and we really see it as a way of sort of the future in the construction industry, and for a number of different reasons. You know, you have more control. It's, you know, you're doing things in a shop versus in a field. You can be more accurate and more precise in your material and stuff like that. So Assemble, you know, we've really gotten to use it a lot over the past year, and I think we're probably going into our 6th or 7th project where we've really utilized it, and I would say every project gets a little bit better each time. So yeah, it's been a great tool for us, and I don't see it going anywhere anytime soon. So yeah, and again, just like John said, thank you for listening to us and diving into a little bit of what we do here.
perfect. All right. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed watching the session as much as we all enjoyed presenting it. And we hope to see you again in future webinars. And now, if you are attending Autodesk University this month and you run into any one of us there, please be sure to stop and say hello. Take care.